Hello friends, and welcome back to English Classes Online, where English learning is made easy. Kindly subscribe to our channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Like and share our videos and turn on the notification for more videos. English Classes Online is where English learning is made easy. English Classes Online is also where literature in English is made easy. English Classes Online is where we teach you how you can use the English language as a powerful tool for content creation. So we teach you how you can use the English language to create valuable content and create multiple streams of income on various online platforms. So you are most welcome to our channel. Rest assured that our classes are always informative, educative, and exciting. Let's dive into today's lesson right away. In today's lesson, we shall be looking at best tips for writing a fascinating story. A story that teaches a definite lesson about life, a story that people can relate with, a story that grabs people's attention and retain their attention. That's the kind of story that will help you to score high marks in any English exam. I am Benjamin from English Classes Online. Come with me as we dive into today's lesson right away. In this lesson, we are going to look at the following items. 1, what is a story? 2, topic. The first step to take in writing a story is to identify the topic of the story. 3, the purpose. Identify the purpose of the story. 4, experience. Identify the experience you want to share. 5, planning. Plan your story. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. A badly written story is a story written without planning. 6, writing. It is after taking the initial pre-writing steps that you now begin to write, and that will be a good, fascinating story. Then 7, ending. Ending your story with a resolution of the conflict and a relevant moral lesson. Very important. Number 8, editing. Edit your work. This is important. Let's begin to look at this, and then I will allow you to have the full screen so you can see what I share with you on the screen and listen to my explanation without any distraction. To start with, what exactly is a story? A story is an account of past events in people's lives told in such a way that the reader or listener learns something about human experience. A story could be about imaginary or real people and events. When it is imaginary, it is fiction. When it is about real people and events, then it is a factual story. Now, in most West African senior school certificate examination English exams, uh, you are given a proverb, a quote, or a saying, and you are expected to write a story that illustrates the saying. For example, write a story to illustrate the saying, prevention is better than cure. In some cases, you are given a group of words that begin or end a story, and you are asked to write a story based on that. For example, write a story that ends with the words, had I known, I would not have gone out with him. Okay. Now, that brings us to the first step you must take: identify the topic of your story. To figure out the topic of your story, you need to ask, what is the story all about? You may have to figure out the topic from a given quote, a saying, or an expression. For example, prevention is better than cure. Look before you leap. You may be asked to write a story that illustrates the saying, look before you leap. Then you may have to figure out the topic of your story from a group of words. For example, if I had known I wouldn't have gone out with him, I wish I had listened to my parents. Okay. Now let's look at identifying the purpose of your story, which is the next step. To figure out the purpose of your story, you need to ask, what is the story meant to teach about life? Because a good story is meant to achieve a definite purpose, and that purpose is to teach a moral value or a lesson about life. If a story doesn't teach you anything, definitely is useless. You need to figure out this purpose by thinking about the expression given in the exam question. For example, write a story that ends with the statement, I wish I had listened to my parents. This is taken from the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2019, and that exactly is the question we shall be using for our illustration in this lesson. The next step is to identify the experience you want to share in your story. To figure out the experience you want to share in your story, you need to figure out what particular human experience the story is meant to share. Every story is meant to share a particular human experience. For a story to be relatable and interesting, it must share a given human experience. You need to identify a particular experience you want to share. For example, let's look at some examples, sources from which you can take the experience you want to share. The first is a personal experience you had sometime in the past, direct experience you had. You may have, had some experience, and you can take something from that to share with people. Another source is an incident you witnessed, heard, or read about, okay? Or an imaginary incident, something you imagine based on the general human experience, okay? These are possible sources from which you can take the experience you want to share with people. The next step is to plan your story. You need to plan your story based on the elements of storytelling: when, where, what, how, why, and of course, who. Okay? Jot down the facts or main points of the experience you want to write about based on these elements. Let's take some some example of how you can plan your story based on these elements. The first element is setting. Setting is about where and when. Where did this take place? In Asaba. When did this take place? When I was in SS2, for example. Then the next is characters. That is about who. Who are the people in the story? All right, the story must be about people for it to be relatable and interesting. Now, characters in this kind of story could be dad, mom. Please, let's exhaust this before going to the next one. It could be about dad, mom, my friend Debbie and I, Debbie's boyfriend, and another boy, etc. Then, still on planning your story, the next element of storytelling is plot. Plot is the arrangement of events in the story. How did this start? What happened first? and what happened next, what were the causes of this problem, and what were the results of certain actions. Okay, that is what plot is about. A witch cried in the night and the child died in the morning. One thing has to lead to another. Okay, that is how to figure out a good story and talking about plot. For example, my parents had warned me not to attend parties. That's one thing. So this story is about attending a party. Excuse me. Let me take some little water. Excuse me. Okay, let's go on. Still on plot. My parents had warned me not to attend parties. I sneaked out one night to accompany my friend Debbie to a party. She came with her boyfriend and another boy in a car. During the party, I sat down eating rice and chicken and drinking malt. You know, this is just to give you uh, some idea about what the plot is about. The plot is arrangement of events, the background to the story, and why the story ends with the statement, I wish I had listened to my parents. In the first place, my parents warned me not to attend parties, but I went ahead to attend the party, and then that is what the story is like, okay? Then the next is the conflict, okay? For a story to be interesting, it must have conflict because conflict is what drives the plot of a good story. You know, a conflict may not be a physical fight between characters. It could be a serious problem confronting the main character in the story. For example, the trauma and stigma of having an unwanted pregnancy were so painful. The guilt associated with bringing such dishonor and disgrace to my parents was unbearable. I woke up every morning wishing that it had been a nice dream, but the awkward protrusion of my abdomen and my inability to go to school like my classmates made me curse the day I was born. See, there is a conflict, there is a serious problem confronting this character. That is conflict. Of course, it is the conflict that creates suspense, and that is what makes a reader or a listener want to read more because you want to know what is going to happen next and you want to know how this problem is going to be resolved at last or what is going to eventually happen to this character. Then resolution and theme. Resolution is how the conflict is eventually brought to an end. And then the theme is the lesson that the reader learns from the experience. For example, I went through hell throughout the pregnancy, childbirth, and nursing of the baby. Although my parents eventually forgave my folly and gave me the needed support, I wasted 2 full years of my academic career. By the time I returned to school, all my classmates had left school and most of them were already university graduates, university undergraduates. I wish I had listened to my parents. You see, that is exactly, even though the problem was eventually solved, there were consequences. Now, writing the story is the next step. And in beginning the story, you have to use an appetizing beginning. Now, what makes a good story? What makes a good beginning is that it hooks your readers and makes them want to read more. You can begin in any of the following ways. For example, you can begin by asking a question or a set of questions. They are called rhetorical questions. You can use the rhetorical question beginning or method in beginning your story. Or you may begin by describing the setting, that's the location. You may describe the location, the weather, or the atmosphere, okay? Or you may begin by describing an action. You may also begin by presenting a dialogue. Engage the main character in a dialogue. It could be a dialogue or even a monologue. A monologue is by one character. A dialogue is a conversation between two characters. If you read a novel, a recent novel I wrote, and that is, you know, what is the title of this novel? Yes, what's the title? I'll tell you the title because I've written 7 novels, I think 7 of them. This one is not in print, but is initially published as an ebook. Okay, and that is um, okay. I will remember the title and I will let you know. Okay, I started that novel with a conversation, just to let you know. Okay, so you can start with a conversation. Some started, with some. You can also start a story with a quotation. Okay, you can start with a quotation, or you can start with um, you can start directly by presenting the action, just by describing an action, and so on and so forth. Okay, then you may start by introducing the main character. Okay, give some important background information about the incident. Then the next thing you must consider is ending the story. You need to end the story with a resolution and a moral lesson. Every good story presents a conflict that puts the main character in a dilemma. This situation creates suspense such that the reader eagerly wants to know what is going to happen next, or most importantly, how the conflict is going to be resolved eventually. A good ending must resolve the conflict in a satisfying way, in a way that really teaches a moral value or an important lesson about life. Now, this brings us to a sample story. Let's now write a story based on this past WAEC question. Write a story that ends with the statement, "I wish I had listened to my parents." This is taken from the West African Senior School Certificate Examination of June 2019. How do we write this type of story? Now, this is the sample. Begin with the title and learn to write your title in capital letters at the top center of your answer sheet, just as you can see it here. I wish I had listened to my parents. After that, you begin with the first paragraph, which is the introductory paragraph. And here is what the introductory paragraph looks like. Experience, they say, is the best teacher. However, I have discovered that listening to the advice of those who are older and more experienced is really better than having to pass through certain unpleasant things in order to learn from them. When I look back to an unpleasant incident that turned my dreams upside down, I am convinced that listening to good advice is indeed better than having to learn from a bitter experience. Now, this introductory paragraph actually is quite relevant because the story itself is about, uh, one's failure to listen to one's parents. I wish I had listened to my parents. Okay, so you have passed through an unpleasant experience that was caused by your refusal to listen to your parents, and so this kind of introductory paragraph is a good one. And then after the introductory paragraph, the next paragraph should be should begin the story actually. And here is what it is. As a girl of 15 in SS2, I was so carried away by peer pressure that I was not interested in whatever advice my parents gave to me. I believed my friends and acted on whatever they considered the best way to follow. Whereas my parents instructed me not to attend parties, my friends insisted that there was nothing wrong with attending parties. How on earth could anyone stop a modern girl from attending parties? Didn't our parents attend parties when they were young? The whole argument made a lot of sense to me, and I resolved that I needed to have and enjoy my freedom like other girls. See? Then the next paragraph. When Debbie told me about a party being organized to mark her boyfriend's birthday, I resolved to accompany her to the party as she requested. Since my parents had insisted that I should never attend the party, I didn't tell them about it. I sneaked out of the house that night to wait for Debbie outside the gate as prearranged. She came with her boyfriend and another boy in a car. You see? Then the next paragraph. During the party, I sat down eating rice and chicken and drinking malt. At a point, I noticed that I was feeling drowsy. That was all that I could remember when I woke up the next morning and saw myself lying beside a strange young man in a strange bed in a strange room that turned out to be a hotel room. I felt my heart beating irregularly when I noticed that I was completely naked and wet with blood and fluid. It dawned on me that I had been drugged and raped. I felt betrayed by Debbie, who was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps she had gone to bed with her boyfriend after selling me out to a total stranger. I cleaned myself up and rushed out of the place in that early hour before dawn. What was uppermost in my mind was how to get home before my parents noticed that I hadn't slept at home. Next paragraph. I heaved a sigh of relief when I was able to cover up what happened. Little did I know that that incident had sown a seed that would germinate and turn all my dreams upside down. A few months later, I started noticing strange things like a feeling of nausea and vomiting, which I initially dismissed as another bout of malaria. How wrong I was. To cut a long story short, a test eventually confirmed that I was pregnant. 5 months had passed before the test was conducted. My entire world crumbled right in front of me. My parents were mad with me. I was totally mad with myself as well, but it was too late. Next paragraph. The trauma and stigma of having an unwanted pregnancy were so painful. The guilt associated with bringing such dishonor and disgrace to my parents was unbearable. I woke up every morning wishing that it had been a nice dream, but the awkward protrusion of my abdomen and my inability to go to school like my classmates made me curse the day I was born. Although my parents eventually forgave my folly and gave me the needed support, I ended up wasting 2 full years of my academic career. By the time I returned to school, all my classmates had left and most of them had already gained admission to the university. I wish I had listened to my parents. See, this brings us to the end of this lesson. Many thanks for watching today's video. A big thank you to all of you out there for being part of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, kindly subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now as a way of giving us support.
about new videos, click on the bell icon. You will find the bell icon. Click on it so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be instantly notified. If you have actually enjoyed the video, like and share the video with your friends and relatives. This is very important. If you have any comments, leave your comments below. Any questions, any suggestions, we would gladly receive them and respond promptly and positively to them. See you in the next video. I look forward to always seeing you in the new video.